What is up, guys and girls? Hurricane Liz here, and in this video we go back in depth with the KDP question that we got last time. Now, just to remind people that didn't see the last video, this video talks about somebody who has spent over $600 in KDP advertising, generating quite a few sales, but still not at break even. And the question remains, should they keep their ads running? Should they chop their ads up? Should they cut them out? What should they do to keep this thing going? And the last time, the questions that we did not have answered is how much additional sales did these ads, $700 worth of ads, generate other than the amount generated through advertising alone? So how many other sales aside from the paid ads were generated by running $700 worth of ads? That's what we're gonna see today, and we're gonna see, is it worthwhile to run this much money worth of ads, and what is the next step after this happens? So I'm fired up for this video. I hope you're fired up. Let's go and do this. All right, so here was the original question, and I just wanted to point out some important things. No, I'm not gonna read through this whole thing. Yeah, no, like, yawn, like, TLDR, what's the whole point of this, Liz? Well, the point of this is that in this actual write-up, this guy had spent on this $500 worth of ads in 20 days and made 99 sales for a total ACOS of 66%. And I'll go over ACOS if you don't understand it. We'll talk about that. And so far, his BSR had been as high as 18K to 20K, and it ranked number 3 for its main keyword. However, he was just leaking money. So he gave us a couple stats. The CPC was 23 to 25 cents. A pretty good CTR, 6.5 to 9.5 cents right here. The daily budget was 40, but in general, the ACOS was really high. And so it came down to, what should he do next? So I gave him a lot of suggestions in the last video, which you should look at in case you want to know suggestions if you're in the same boat. But what ended up happening is he came back and he put some other important data that we need in order to get a better assessment of, is running these ads or continuing to run these ads worth it, and what else can he do? So a lot of information that he gave us matched up with what I said. So let's talk about that. All right, so this, I'm going to paraphrase it. Again, I'm not a big reader, so here is, for the full month, which is lifetime, he spent a total of $642, had 3,400 clicks, and a CTR of 8.98. Now, again, we spoke about this funnel thing in the last video, so I highly recommend to look at that. And again, the funnel goes like this. At the top, you see impressions, and he's going to talk a little bit about impressions. In fact, let me draw it out for you again, just so you know. All right, so here's my lame-ass drawing. Again, sorry, it was very last minute, but this is the way we generally see things come in, right? We see things come in like this. We see things coming from the top on the way down. Is the way we measure campaigns is by first the number of impressions they generate, and then we look at the number of clicks, and then we look at the number of conversions to dissect what problems there are with ads campaigns. So in this particular guy's instance, his clicks or his click-through rate is pretty darn good, because I talk about how anything higher than a 1% is a very good click-through rate. His click-through rate is obviously very good. I believe it was 6%. But let's go down and figure out what his other numbers are and what happens with impressions when he does cut the budget to figure out if this should keep going or what. All right, so the click-through rate is 8.98%, so I was way off. It's very good. The average cost per click is 20 cents, which means he's getting good click-through rate, and he's also made a total of 132 orders from this ad with an ACOS of 65.54. So 132 total orders at $642, and outside of it, he's done approximately 47 additional sales, because in total he's had 179 sales. So that's a very important piece of information. So let's figure out, is that good enough to keep this running? Another weird thing that he did is he still has no ratings or reviews for all these units sold, which means he's got 0 stars on there. And that is huge, because if you saw the last video, you'll know that I said this is the simple, biggest, number one thing you can do to increase the conversion. The number of stars that you have on your particular books will increase your conversion rate, will increase the number of sales that land on your page, just because people look at that conversion, they're like, oh, other people like this. If you have none, then you're losing out huge. So there's a couple recommendations that I can make now based on what he just said, and I'll just make them right now before I forget. That is, I would stop running this or cut the budget really low, pull out your winners, start to put some reviews on this sucker, and then fire it back up with the words that you knew were winners, because right now you're losing out on a ton of sales. So if you're not breaking even, you're not gonna make that many sales by not having any reviews on this thing. So let's see what happens here. He says, I don't know if this is normal because I usually start seeing reviews after the first 20 or 30 sales. Another thing I noticed the last couple of days is the book is starting to rank for more related keywords, and the BSR is always around the same. So I would keep a note, see if you're seeing any increase in organic sales. If you are, then I'd still keep it running. But right now, I don't think that's going to happen because of your review ratings. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't seem to have caught on without those review ratings. Now for the actions I took. I've updated the interior with some new features and stuff to see if it'll resonate with the targeted audience, even though the first one was pretty much good and updated, looking at what's already in the market. I've also removed the bad keywords products from targeting a few days ago, so I'm only left with the high converting costing keywords. I tried to reduce the bids for these keywords by 5 to 10% and let them run for 2 days, but I noticed that the number of impressions had decreased by 50% or even more, so I went back to the usual bid. I also had an author central page since today and blah, blah, blah. So let's look at this. The number of impressions decreased. Let's look back at my chart. So according to my chart, impressions are at the top level, the most important thing. If you're getting a low number of impressions, obviously raising the bid will get you a higher number of impressions. And if you lower the cost per click and your number of impressions gets lower like his did, then it's probably a good idea to go back up higher. So in general, what Amazon is saying when this happens is that your book hasn't proved to convert well enough for those impressions in order to justify them giving you that much traffic. So in other words, they need you to pay a higher amount compared to possibly what your competition pays. So that again shows that you need to increase the number of conversions, and I would pretty much ASAP get this thing going with trying to somehow generate some reviews. But let's talk a couple of the numbers that we need to pay attention to. The first one is ACOS. Which is a big one. And I don't even know what ACOS stands for. I just know that it's Amazon's metric to be able to tell how well you sold. And usually to be able to tell what your break-even ACOS is, it's whatever your margin is. So for example, I don't know the cost of this book, but the cost of this book will be very important to figure out ACOS. Your margin or break-even point is whatever your margin equals. So if your margin is say 20%, which I find that most of these Kindle books is 20 to 21%, then your break-even percent is 21%. So we got to figure out, and we'll say, for example, for the sake of this one, that break-even ACOS is 25%, right? We'll say that that's the margin on this book. And I think in order to be 25%, we'd need to be around the $7.99 point. So I don't know the cost of the book. I'm going to guess the cost of the book here is $7.99. And then we're going to do this calculation, which is ad spend divided by sales. So I'm going to grab those numbers from over there, and then we're going to calculate to see what the ACOS is with just the paid ads, and then what the ACOS is if you add in the organic sales to really tell how our ad campaign is doing. All right, and what I got from that is about 61%. So I'm a little bit off. If we actually did the opposite, let's say that we had this book at $6.99. Let's see what kind of price we get. So $6.99 and 132 sales. And let's do like that. 642 divided by 922 equals 69. So it's somewhere in between. So I'm just going to keep the $7.99. That means our ACOS is 61%. But if we do this for the total number of sales, including the organic, we'll see the true ACOS because it did get us some organic sales. So we'll see if it's doing good for us, if it's doing bad for us, or how exactly it's doing. So let's go ahead and just duplicate this. And over here, we're going to do 642, same thing. But this time, we got 179 sales. So I'm going to take $7.99, multiply it by 179, and I get $1,430. So it's now 642 divided by 1,432, and I get 44%. So 642 divided by 1432, and now instead of 61, I get 44%. However, that still is nowhere near this 25%. So essentially, for every single book that we're selling, we are losing almost 20% on that book sale, which is like maybe about $2. It might not be a good idea to continue moving forward until you do get those reviews, but that's kind of how I calculated this. And so yeah, as you can see, it doesn't look like it's profitable at the present time, and that's more than likely because you have 0 reviews. So I would highly recommend you immediately put reviews on this. And if you do want to keep this running, I might still cut some of those. Maybe I'll cut the budget down. That way your ad spend still stays high and you still keep some sales going on there. And I would maybe cut the ad budget down to half, which it seems like you're spending a lot less than half as it is right now. You're spending a little bit more than half. So I would cut the budget possibly in half immediately, or start doing it by 10% every week, and then start working at the reviews and the ratings. And then once you get those going, then I would start a brand new campaign with the winners in that, and I would go balls to the wall. I would do the $40 ad spend. I would do the high price of the bidding, and then see what happens and take it from there as soon as you have more reviews. But other than that, I know this video was a little technical. I apologize for that, but I hope you guys caught on. And let me know your questions in the comments below. I will always personally answer those, and I'll see you in the next video.